I wasn't planning on recording today, but this gem came up in my LinkedIn feed and I just couldn't resist. So this is a post by Kate McAndrew, who's a co-founder and general partner at a VC firm. And she is applauding herself for creating her own schedule and doing her job. She talks about how she prioritizes, she hustles and she rests, she prioritizes her health. She does work, parenting, and movement to dominate her days. She prioritizes in-person meetings. She optimizes for active work time. So she takes a Waymo so she can work from the back seat. That's cute. You can't actually work from the back seat. Also, my dogs are playing with some squeaky toys in the background, so I apologize if that's a bit distracting. But they will do what they do. What else does she say here? She chooses to wake up at 4 a.m. because that's what works for her. Okay. As someone who routinely wakes up at 4 a.m., notoriously for years, I have done this, and I oscillate from time to time. Lately, I haven't been as much disciplined as in the past, but I am one of these people that wakes up at the crack of dawn to work early. And let me tell you, no one chooses to wake up at 4 a.m. because it's fun. It's because you have to. There's something you need to get done, and that's the only pocket of time you can do it in. And for some people, I think, this was definitely me maybe a couple of years ago. Definitely like more creative flow. It's quieter in the mornings, less distraction, that kind of stuff. I'm going to say, though, for the vast majority of people, you're waking up at 4 a.m. because that's literally the only time you have outside of the obligations of your job, outside the obligations of family to get stuff done. So I don't buy the whole, I choose to wake up at 4 a.m. Like, yeah, you're setting your alarm, but if you had a preference and could actually choose, you wouldn't wake up at 4 a.m. She doesn't cold plunge, cycle, or play golf. She only attends one work event per week in the evening. Otherwise, my evenings are for me. Note they're for her and not her children. We all have balance. She thinks a VC is an incredible career as a mother. Okay. Before we look at her schedule, let's meet Miss McAndrew. So she lives in San Francisco. She's the co-founder of looks like a VC firm. And looks like that's really all she's done is VC. So she's a program director she did AmeriCorps. Okay. She worked at Lululemon, did social media, and she was a partner. Investing in people is my highest calling. Interesting. Okay. So then she jumped from whatever she was doing here to becoming a VC founder. So I don't know too much about VC world. I'm not in San Francisco. I have done some work with VCs. My impression is VCs are filled with people who kind of just like me don't really know what to do with their lives, but they need some sort of credential and legitimacy for their work, and they need a made up title. So people do all sorts of things, right? You might go into like the content creation route like I've done. There's the consulting route that people do. And then if you have enough money, you can become a VC. And basically you're just investing other people's money. It's no different than like a hedge fund, right? But you're investing in startups. And really VCs, in my humble opinion, aren't really doing any good work for humanity. I would kind of put them up there with private equity. VCs are just betting on unicorns. So honestly, they're no different than someone going to a horse race and trying to pick a pony that they think is going to win. VC folks are just betting on startups, and they have different themes, of course. Like hers, it looks like is creative technologists, whatever that means. So building companies at the frontiers of technology and design. But usually VCs have, one or two, maybe three, or however many, companies in their portfolio. And they're the ones that like they think are actually going to take off and have something to them. And they'll invest time and energy in those. But then the rest are just to diversify risk. And if something takes off, great. If not, it won't. But people think like VC and startup world is this legitimate thing? And sure, if you're in Y Combinator, you're in a Teal Fellowship, and you have funding from Andreessen Horowitz, and you're building an AI company, okay, you're kind of legit. But for the majority of companies and startups, there's nothing really there. And the best bet that a lot of these folks have is that whatever startup they're investing in is going to get acquired by another company. So, for example, I was just writing about this for my newsletter that I'll release on Sunday. I was writing about Meta acquiring Scale AI. So that's an example of, or not acquiring, but like investing, kind of acquiring. I don't really know how that works, but they were investing in Scale AI and to poach the CEO of the company, right? And so throughout, just look at all the acquisitions that Amazon and Google and Meta and folks have done. That's really kind of the end goal, unless you do IPO. But that's become really hard. That's why you've had SPACs over the past few years. So, yeah, you're just kind of like betting on unicorns that don't really exist. And the more bets you make, the more chances you have at getting a unicorn. So this is all this to say that VCs are just kind of bullshit. And unless you're at like a major one, like Andreessen Horowitz, for example, I don't know that you can be taken seriously. I don't know. If you're a VC person, you tell me what your thoughts are. But anyways, let's dive into Oh, no, I forgot to call one thing to attention. Because I was looking at this before. I want to go back because her education. So she went to McGill, which is in Canada. But you'll notice her degree is in cultural studies / critical theory and analysis. So here we go. This is how you get all this crazy feminist woke girl boss bullshit into the corporate sphere, and then obviously onto platforms like this, because you have the people who learned it pontificating it from their platforms that they've created for themselves with the bullshit jobs that they've made. Okay, sorry. I did want to call attention to that. Okay, let's dive into her schedule. Her week in a life in San Francisco. Okay, so Monday, she works from bed from 4 to 6 a.m. I don't know about you. I don't work from bed. I can't work from bed. Like, you have to have a space to work from. It's kind of like saying you lift weights from bed. I don't know anyone who does, squats or dumbbell presses in bed. There's just a time and a place for things, and your bed is not a place to do work. So I'm sorry if you're someone who likes to work from bed. I don't think it's appropriate to work from bed. Okay, 6 to 8 a.m. kid time, school drop off. I don't know what kid time necessarily means or what kind of quality time you can have with your kids in the morning besides breakfast and getting them ready. She calls her assistant on her way to the office, and then she looks like she gets to the office by 8:30. Okay, so she has back-to-back calls, partner meetings, and all hands, a one-on-one with her analyst, and a marketing meeting. So all day she's spent in meetings. She's produced nothing, done absolutely nothing, just like talk to other people. At 4:30 to 5:30, there's a dance class. Her kid goes to his dad's house. Okay, so she's divorced. That whole myriad of reasons why that could be, but not surprising. At 6, she's at a roundtable on AI integration. So based on her post up here, how she only attends one work event per week, that looks like it might be like some sort of San Francisco community tech thing hosted by who knows what. But like these kinds of events, these like nighttime events are kind of like mostly networking events, The real stuff, in my opinion, the real meaningful work, valuable work, usually happens behind closed doors, private dinners, private meetings, that kind of stuff. And maybe this is it, maybe I'm projecting, I don't know, but if you can attend something by RSVPing on Meetup, or you see something on LinkedIn, or you got notified of something in some sort of like email list you're on, it's probably not a legit event. It's more just like a networking event. Okay, and she goes to bed by 8 p.m. That's impressive. All right, Tuesday. 4 to 7 a.m. focused work. I'd be curious to know what focused work looks like for someone who does nothing but sit in meetings all day. 7 to 8 a.m. breakfast with BF, assuming that means boyfriend. Okay, so based on her Monday schedule, it doesn't look like she spent time with him then. That looks like she spent time with him on Tuesday. Has a board meeting. Okay, midday dance class. Cool. 1:30 to 5 startup pitches, co-investor meetings. So again, startups are pitching her. So she's hearing potential unicorns that she can potentially invest in, and then another round of meetings. Okay, networking event, and then straight to bed. So I don't know what she's doing with her kiddo. She said she had a kiddo on Monday, so I don't know where kiddo is here. Maybe still at dad's house. All right, Wednesday, 4 to 7 a.m., focused work again. 7 to 8, a weighted vest walk, FaceTime with her kiddo, breakfast. Okay, so kiddo is not here. Kiddo is assuming at dad's house. So from a parenting perspective, she's had quality time with the kiddo before taking them to school on Monday, and then took them to dad's house and is now FaceTiming with them. From 8 to 11, she has calls from the office. From 11 to 12, she takes a car to Palo Alto for lunch. So she with an LP, which is an investor. Okay, so she commuted for an hour, and then she had lunch for an hour and a half. And then another hour spent taking a car back to the city, but she worked from the back seat. Again, like, what kind of work are you doing? And I say this as someone who has tried to do this. I've tried to work on the metro, tried to work on planes, and it just fails every single time. Maybe like her and I are just different people, but there's just only so much you can get done in such a small window of time, and like you can't really get any focus work done. So I'm assuming she's probably just responding to emails, which I consider that busy work. That's really low value. A shallow work, I mean, maybe in a VC context it's considered work, but I don't really consider VCs legitimate to begin with. So I mean, that's a topic for another day. But I'd be curious to know, like, what value is she creating? What economic value is she creating from the backseat of a Waymo? You know. Okay, 2:30 to 4:30 calls from the office. So again, she's just done meetings and calls all day. 5 p.m. pick up kiddo from school and head to the library. So from 5 to 8, she's I don't know how old this kid is, but maybe sounds like they have homework. So it looks like from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. they're kind of doing their nightly routine. So I mean, it's not that that's not quality time, but I don't know how much quality time you can get just, you know, kind of going through the motions of life, and just like kind of doing, like you're checking things off. Okay, I did my homework. Okay, I took a shower, I had dinner, you know, brushed my teeth. You know, it just seems like a giant checklist to me. All right, let's see what we have for Thursday, 4 to 6 a.m. focus work. 6 a.m. to parenting and school drop off at 8 a.m. I would be curious to know what parenting entails here. Okay, 8:30 to 12, partner meeting, full team pitch. 12 to 1, lunch with portfolio founder, so another lunch. 1 to 4:30, meetings at the office. 5 p.m. school pickup. They go to the park. Okay, it's kind of the same as the day before. All right, let's see what we got on Friday. Friday, 4 to 6 a.m. focused work. 6 to 8 a.m. parenting. Drops her son off at school. Okay, 8:30, drop car, take car downtown. So there's a lot of commuting. Sit on VC panel, stay to meet founders. Again, a lot of that stuff is kind of performative, and I understand you have to do some of that for some of these roles. So I'd be curious to know, like, how many VC panels she sits on in a month, or, you know, is this just a one-off thing, or is this more routine? Stays to meet founders. Okay, listens to founder pitches. Has her dance class, 7 p.m. dinner. I haven't seen the boyfriend come up at all since then. So I don't know if she's just like not including him here. But there's no relationship time here. And kind of like I was saying before, the son just feels like a series of checklists on a to-do list to check off. It doesn't really feel like relationship. And maybe going to the library and go to the park. Maybe they're having good fun there. But it just seems like she's filling him in where it makes most sense for her schedule. She's not working a life that is more life-centered. It's more career-centered. And she talks about how it's an incredible career as a mother. And, you know, she's privileged to manage her own calendar and shape it and her life how she wants it. And I get the sense that her family and relationships aren't her priority here based on how she's chosen her schedule. But that's just me being judgmental. Okay, then that's what we have. Yeah. So, you know, comments. This is the top one. Typical roots of the American midlife crisis. No room to decompress. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Kids are only kids once. Yeah. Yeah. So this is subtly calling her out, and she's trying to justify it. All right, what else? Oh, we got a product here. Someone wants to partner with this person. Okay. She doesn't understand. So this woman is getting hate in her comments for obvious reasons. Okay. I despise venture capitalists. Why are you here? Oh, God. Wonderful. Venture cap. Oh, God bless. I don't know who this person is. Stephanie Hedgecoke, but God bless. LinkedIners network for jobs rather than conspiring for others to lose theirs. And venture capitalists ruin San Francisco for the working people. Okay, I resonate with this. VCs, okay, startups don't create jobs. So our economy has to do with, businesses and firms and companies and things that produce value. And then people who work at those places to like make that value happen. So like, in the 1900s, 1950s, you had factories and people went to factories and they produced things. But since like the 1970s with the computer and the deindustrialization and the rise of like white collar work, we've lived in this like information management kind of world where we're not really doing anything. We're just like managing information and the things that have been created, specifically in Silicon Valley. It's infrastructure for the internet. It's not even real. It's like, okay, Amazon's real, right? Amazon has warehouses and things like that. But, if the internet went down tomorrow, if there's a solar flare or whatever, and there was no more internet, like, what is Google? What is Meta? At least like, okay, Apple has hardware. Amazon, like I said, has warehouses. But a lot of these companies, if you pulled the plug on the internet, they're nothing. They're effectively made up. And I'm not saying they don't have value. I mean, obviously, look at the market caps of some of these companies in Silicon Valley. There's clearly value there. But from a more like traditional classical capitalist perspective, we're not talking about like people owning capital and management of that capital and workers taking that capital and generating value from it. Like that whole paradigm is kind of gone. So this is, oh gosh. Yeah. This is interesting. I appreciate that. Interesting. Okay. Look at all the men judging the schedule, wondering how many of them have a white partner doing a ton of invisible labor so they can have a schedule optimized to their preference. Is this a grueling schedule? Yes, but to balance career, parenting, health on your own, sometimes this is what it looks like. Having agency to create a schedule to accommodate all of someone's important things. That's winning, even if it doesn't look like a calendar that appeals to everyone. Okay. There's a lot of leisure in this calendar. She has time to go to dance classes. She goes to meetings in Palo. I don't know if you've never been to the Bay Area. Like going from San Francisco to Palo Alto is kind of a hike. So, she's spending time commuting, going to these meetings, going to events, right? Like this is something I've even noticed with myself is my priorities changed when I entered a different season of life. And there was a point in time where I was going to all sorts of networking events, filling up my schedule, doing as many of them as I could. And at this stage in my life, they're completely unappealing. I have zero desire to go to any sort of happy hour or networking event. And, I look at other people in my field or like people who I would want to emulate, right? Ryan Holiday is a really good example. Ryan Holiday has a bookstore about 45 minutes away in Bastrop. He's done a lot of he writes books about Stoic philosophy, done a lot of really cool work, and I think he's a really good example. Is Ryan Holiday going to the same events that I was going to? No. So why am I going to those events, right? Like if the type of person I aspire to be, someone who creates and provides and adds, intellectual value in the world. If a peer, someone who I see as a peer, or at least someone I'm striving to emulate and be more like, someone who's more of a role model, if the role models aren't at those events, what does that tell you? Right? It was a lot of surface level networking, social slop, people trying to, I remember going to one and someone just pulled out their app and they're like, look at my cool app. You should invest in this. This is great. And I was really turned off by a lot of that. And it's just a lot of people with half-baked ideas, and instead of working on their ideas, they're at networking events trying to sell people on their ideas. And that's kind of what that feels like. So the fact that this woman, and I am judging her because she is the archetype of the girl boss that we're all told to aspire to be to. She has time to go to dance classes. She has time to commute to, midday lunches in neighboring towns. She has time to go to these events, which may or may not have a real impact on her career. Or, and again, I don't know the financials of her VC firm. I don't know how well they're performing. Maybe they're doing great. I don't know. But I don't think VCs have a shortage of founders trying to pitch them, right? There's no shortage of trying to find unicorns. There's no shortage of potential unicorns coming to you. There's a vetting process you probably have to go through, and you have to figure out, and you have to report back to your investors. So there's managing relationships with that regard. But you don't always have to go out and sit on panels or attend, events and things like that. I think from previous experience, kind of working in and around these kinds of circles, it felt like women were doing this to validate themselves and put themselves on a pedestal and show how wonderful and great they were. And this is akin, I would say, to like designer fashion. Like, women don't wear designer fashion because it's comfortable. Like, I don't know a single person who's like, I'm going to wear a $2,000, pantsuit today because it's comfortable. No. They wear it to show off, to establish themselves for other women. That they do it to send a social message, right? So this kind of participatory stuff that's what's happening here. Is this woman's trying to send a message to her peers, both male and female, but in a lot of times it's her female peers looking for validation. How would someone break into becoming a venture capitalist? Be born to rich parents. My first VC job was an accelerator program. Okay, whatever. All right. I'm not gonna read any more of these. So you kind of get the gist. This is what we're all told to be like. We're told to be girl bosses like this. But clearly, just kind of read between the lines here. Look at what's missing. Oftentimes, if you look at what's missing in these people's schedules and these people's lives, you can see kind of where their head's at. So what's missing here? Privacy. She clearly doesn't care about her privacy because she's happily, posting her schedule to social media for validation. It looks like this might have originally been posted to Instagram. I'm not 100% sure. But anyone who posts videos like this to LinkedIn, that's just clearly you're looking for validation, professional validation especially. But anytime people post like these day in life of videos and stuff like that, I really do think that's what they're looking for. So she's looking for validation. There's a clear absence of priority for family time. Family, to me, like the way I interpreted how she spends time with her kid, it felt like just a checklist of a series of things to check off. And then her work itself it's not producing anything. And again, like there might be some value there. I don't know, like, the emotional intelligence stuff and building interpersonal relationships, but she's not producing anything. Like at the end of the week, like what did she do? She sat in a bunch of meetings. She took a bunch of calls. She had a few lunches, listened to some pitches. But what's the return on her time? Like if I were an investor and had, given her my money to invest, what would she report back with her time spent? Like, for every hour you spent managing my money to get a higher return, like what is that return? And people don't really think like that. And I think that's important to start thinking like that if you don't, because then it kind of tells you where your priorities are. quickly responding to emails in the back of a Waymo is not valuable work. It's not good work, in my opinion. And kind of like I said before, I don't think too highly of VCs, but it looks like I'm not the only one. So yeah, I would love to know what you think about this whole schedule that she laid out. Can you relate to, if you're a working parent, can you relate to any of this? And what was something that caught your eye or piqued your interest as I walk through this? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like this video, please subscribe and give it a like. That will help me and the algorithm figure out more stuff to record like this. All right, I'll see you in the next video.